traversed the island and are back. That's good. Good on you. Just in time. Okay. You start, Mr. Mohi. Okay, thank you. Let's go straight to item 15, Annual Plan Progress Report, and I'll hand that over to Mr. Drury.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Collins will come up and present the majority of it. But what I'd like to say by way of an introduction is that this is a new style report. Now, we've had a discussion about that. This report's broken up into four sections for a little bit of easy read. Operating account, balance sheet, comment about cash flow, and then capital. And what we're doing is driving it by way of analysing variances and getting the managers to comment about their variances, certainly in the operating area. So, and you'll note there, as Manton takes you through it, that the managers have spent a bit of time commenting about their variances to projects and a little bit of comment about where they are at this particular time in the year. Bear in mind the pro rata is still based on the divide by 12 in most cases. Next year, 14-15, we will get those pro ratas thought through. So if expenditure is going to be towards the end of the year, well, that's the way the pro rata will be established. Today we won't have that. So some of the explanations do allude to that, but I'll get Manton to take you through that.
Right, good afternoon. As Paul said, this is just an information paper updating you on where we are 7 months through the year. So most of our pro rata is done on that kind of 58% through the year and how we're tracking compared to that, and some comments on the various variances. So probably the best place to start is the operating statement, which I think is page 67, which we've tried to make as summarised as we can, and have got some detail later on if you need to delve into those a little bit more. I'll just briefly kind of run over the overriding themes, and then if you've got any questions, feel free to fire those, and we will see how we go there. So we're just coming up, I guess, really to the major busy part of our seasons, definitely to do with to land and drainage, and all the science things are really heating up over the summer months, coming back in. So we are expecting a lot of movement coming up. At the moment, we are looking at our net funding requirement as we do. We are over that, I guess, as a positive variance at the moment. We've got 691,000 over. Sorry, to our pro rata budget, we were expecting to be kind of at half of our deficit, which we'd forecast for the year. At the moment, so there's about $1 million difference there, and a lot of those variances are on timing of when these projects, the expenses come through and those sort of things. So we've, in the middle there, got favourable and unfavourable and management comments, which I'm sure you have seen, and worked out that on the next page is some more expansion on those points if you wanted to find out why those variances are there. And really the major one which stands out there is in the regional resources, where most of that $1 million kind of underspent, if you will, at this time of the year, and there's some good reasons for that over the page. Most of those are to do with the development of the model for the tank and the mohaka, which is all going through at the moment. Those expenses will flow through in the coming months. And our sustainable land management, where a lot of the land care grants that we give out are done so at the last few months of our financial year, which are fully allocated and will be fully spent. It's just that is the way that they flow through, and as Paul said, in next year's budgets we will try to mirror those as well as we can through the pro rata. But if you do have any questions on that operating statement, now's probably a good time to go through those individually if you'd like. Otherwise, the general theme is that we're using that 12-month pro rata. We're under where we should be as far as expenditure goes, but that does increase as the months go on towards the end of the year. There's no questions there. We will move on. Probably the next page to have a look at, and we do have a heat smart report there, but obviously there's not a whole lot of to report on from last time due to the summer months. That scheme seems to pick up during the winter months when people are getting a bit cold and thinking about those things. So the next place is probably scheme reserves, which is on page 71.
Imagine
Yeah,
you
sure.
taking questions on heat smart.
Oh yeah, go for it. Sorry.
So I'm just wondering if you've got a budget for grants and they've run out for the year, why don't you just stop until the following year?
That's a good point. Paul.
Oh, yeah. No. The grant is where the activity is. The objective is to get the non-compliant heat pumps. Non-compliant fires out and put a compliance source in. So. And it's easier for us to actually give the grants. It's more streamlined. It's more easily understood by the people taking out the fires. Loans are there, but they're a 10-year interest and what have you. So they're becoming not as attractive. So no, we're supportive of them picking up the grants. It's one hit, it's over, and it's done.
So there's a total pot allocated each year, and what we've done is sort of made some assumptions about how much of that will be taken up by loan and how much by grant. And what we've found, as Paul said, is that the grants have become far more attractive. They're obviously a lot less than the loans, but they don't involve a 10-year repayment. So people are tending to take those, which has skewed that figure. So the money's still there, which is why we haven't stopped the grants, but they're coming from out of a pool, which means that there's fewer loans being issued.
And I think Mark Heaney will be doing a report at some stage to talk you through that a bit more. So the scheme balances, so these are for targeted schemes which have their own funding through a targeted rate and also capital works and things going on through those. There's a couple of explanations of ones which have reasonable variances. The macro dam is one that stands out in that those works are going on at the moment, so those costs are still to come in and are coming in, even though we've rated and borrowed to cover those costs already. So that's why that scheme is looking rather healthy. But as those costs come in, it will look close to budget. And the rivers and drainage schemes are all kind of progressing as we speak, expenditure-wise, and they do vary from year to year based on what the program is through there. And the major one that stands out is our Heat Smart, just as we've been talking about. We borrow in advance for that funding, so we've just recently borrowed in December the funding for that, so that will sit in that scheme until it is used up as we go through the year. If you've got any other questions on any schemes.
And that money that sits there just goes out as there was another diagram here to those various banks on term deposit, does it? Like that large amount was 2 million.
Ooh, sorry. So where are we?
Well, when it sits in here,
right. Yes.
Doesn't it just sits here on the books, but it's off to some bank.
Yeah, and it gets fed back into the individual schemes that the money comes from. Yeah. Right. We've got the rather heavy project by project pages that come after that, which is if you wanted to delve into any particular project to see how that is tracking. We give kind of percentage to budget and things like that in there. But if there is any particular concern that you have, we can have a look at those. That is kind of the breakdown of those summaries which we first looked at. Otherwise, we'll move on to the balance sheet, which is probably of slightly more interest, which is page 77. So what we've done there is we've just shown what the balance sheet was at the beginning of the year, which is our 1st of July, and to where it is at the moment, and obviously management comments to the side, which we talk about on the page over. So if there was any of those that you wanted to have a look at or explained, we can go through that. Hopefully those management comments make this process a bit easier. Yeah.
That's on the building, your comment number 1.
Yeah.
What is the situation that currently legally, and I know this isn't a financial question, it's far more an opportunity to ask where are we at with that, and has all the work actually been completed? Is this the end of the costs, or have we still got some outstanding work?
I can answer that. Yes, second part of the question, yes, the building work has now been completed. With regard to the first part of the question, we have, through our lawyers, been talking to all parties involved. They have indicated a willingness to mediate, and we are just putting together all the detailed costs for each different aspect of the problems that were accounted around the building or incurred around the building. So that we have a clear picture of the cost of each individual organisation or claimant group, if we like to call it, and what we will be approaching them on the basis of, well, this is what it's cost us, and obviously linking that to what we believe is their responsibility. That work is underway at the moment. We will be updated in detail on all of that stuff by our lawyers in the middle of the month, and mediation will proceed as soon as possible after that.
Councillor Barker.
Question, mediation with who? As I understand it, just get it clear in my head, the prime contractor for constructing this building has gone into liquidation and exists no more.
That is correct. We have therefore brought in a number of subcontractors and other parties that were involved in the construction and will be mediating directly with them.
Mr. Collings, any more discussion there?
Yeah, great. So if there's nothing more on the balance sheet, we've got some information on where our loans are at the moment, and a little bit on our reserves of where our funding is and which institutions they are with, percentages and things like that. If you've got any questions, again, please fire those at you. Otherwise, I can talk to those, but I don't know if there's any. Yeah, Scott.
I've got one question around the reserves funding on page 81. How long is that amount for the mussel farm going to sit on our books? Because my understanding that's going nowhere.
That is a good point. It's something historic that actually I haven't even dealt with. It just sits there and earns a little bit of interest.
So I could probably add comment there that we do have a meeting coming up with the proponents of that scheme to discuss the future of that operation, and my understanding is that that's likely to be withdrawn. So I'm not sure what happens to the funding, but the operation is unlikely to proceed.
Given that, I assume that figure will be repaid to the applicant, will it not?
I would have to take guidance on that. I assume it is. If that's money they've paid in advance for processing it, then yes, it more than likely will.
Great, and we've got a cash flow statement at the back, which is which is hopefully a little bit more helpful. We've tried to and prorata that, not quite on a 12-month basis, but try and flesh that out a little bit, depending on our cash flows for the ones that we know about. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an understanding of how the cash flows through this place, and what kind of what kind of cash we're holding in terms of term deposits and things like that, which were on the previous page. And the last part is just to do with our capital expenditure and where things are tracking compared to budgets and the different areas which we use for capital. So if you've got any questions on what we're doing or how we do it, then we've got a few managers here who'd probably talk you through those as well if you'd wish.
Councillor.
The amount for solar heating, that provision is in the form of loan funding, is it? Mm-hmm. So it's not a savings that we can make on the annual plan by looking at the realistic institution of this program.
It was money proposed to be borrowed and put out at market rate, so
Yep.
either happens or it doesn't.
Any other questions? Everyone comfortable with the new style of reporting? Working well? Good. Any other questions? Any other comments, Mr. Collins?
Yeah, just as far as the report goes, it is a work, and we can keep changing it and adding some things if we can. If it would make things easier.
I think you've done very well.
Getting there, hopefully. Yeah.
Other questions? Happy to move that we accept the report then. Councillor Dick, thank you. Seconded Councillor Graham. You wish to speak?
I don't start to be complimented on the revision of the format.
Yeah, I'd just like to compliment you on the movement. I can understand these a lot better than I did the previous ones. So thanks for that. And we'll slowly move to management reports, which will be even better. Thanks.
Very good. No other comments? Put that motion then. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Look, with your indulgence, I'd like us to go to page 97 and let's get through the two smaller items on our